finally, went up to see Lakshmi, and we got into lines, and then we were broken up into gendered lines, right? There was one line for women and one line for men, because God hates fun. So, one of our naughty bits touched while we were waiting in line. We would have left them by the door if we could have, Kind of a design flaw, if you ask me, right? The real reason why they do it is to prevent inappropriate touching, groping, sexual assault, that sort of stuff. Which is a bizarre thought to me, isn't it? Isn't that a bizarre thought? I don't know anybody that's getting hot and bothered by divinity, right? I don't know anybody that's waiting in these lines going, I can't finish unless I know there's omnipotence! I don't think we're ever going to finish. Now I'm watching this priest very carefully. It's the middle of the day, right? And the people that are at the temple right now are not rich people. They are working class people, right? Average working class people, low to middle income people that spent their hard-earned money to be there. They had to spend their hard-earned money on the darshan plate, and in order to be there, they either had to take a half day from work or a full day from work, right? So I'm watching what this priest is doing. What he does is the people give him the darshan plate, and he does a little mantra. He throws the flour over the deity. He blesses the food goes back to the people, and then there's a donation box, right? And you have to put money into the donation box, right? But you don't have to put money into the donation box, but you have to put money into the donation box. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they do, right? And the second that their fingers leave that bill, the priest is like, all right, fucking next. What kind of fast food darshan is this shit? Or is this like the KFC of Hinduism? What the fuck? So I'm waiting in line, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get the financial transaction of this interaction done first, because I'm trying to have a spiritual experience. I'm trying to be more open-minded for my wife. It's been 7 years since I've been here, right? I want to try to see if something happens, right? I'm trying to be good, so I wanted to get the business end out of it first, so then I can have my time with the Lord, right? So I walk up and I put the money into the donation till first. Big mistake. Because the second that my fingers left that bill, the priest was like, all right, move along, you gotta go. It's like, bro, who is here right now? Right? There's no one fucking behind me. This is ridiculous. Let me have a couple minutes with the Lord, right? Let me make eye contact with the Lord. Maybe she'll wink at me. This will be a completely different show. Just be up here going, guys, I gotta tell you about the word of the Lord. It is sponsored by Colgate. Let me talk to her for a few minutes, right? Let me look at her and be like, hey, how's it going? We've always kind of had a difficult relationship, with the whole, I don't think you're real kind of a thing. But I feel like a lot of that is on you. For providing, no evidence. So, I feel like I'm giving a lot, not getting anything in return. So how are you? Hey, let me ask you a question. If you're the goddess of wealth and you have all of the wealth in the whole universe, how come you don't help out poor people? And then I would get kicked out of India. So.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the program. Doing a Thursday live stream today. Usually I do Monday to Wednesday, but we're doing a Thursday one because had kind of a shitty day yesterday. Burnt myself out with a whole bunch of stress. So that was fun. Hope you guys are doing well out there. We're going to be kicking things off in just a minute and diving into our big stories for the day. If you guys are tuning in, checking things out, please make sure you hit the share button and feel free to leave some comments. And you guys know the drill when we do these things is leave a comment and I will read them at the end of each segment, so I don't get lost in meandering and all that kind of stuff. To give you guys a quick update on what's going on with me is still dealing with the car shit. And it's the stress mounts every day that there is no movement in anything. I haven't heard back from the credit union. A bunch of other banks that I'm talking to want me to jump through 18,000 different hoops before they'll even let me apply. And so it's been really challenging to keep my patience, which is wearing thin with this situation. Honestly, I would feel 250,000 times better if the credit union that I applied to refinance my loan would just fucking call me back. That's all I want. That would be great. I feel like that's not asking a lot. If they say no, then I have to look elsewhere. I just want to know an answer. You know what I mean? That's all I fucking want. And yesterday, the reason I kind of tapped out was I had a very frustrating call with that credit union, which I think it's like a Legion credit union or something like that. It's a Pittsburgh-based credit union, and you just have to live or work within Allegheny County. It's one of the few that's in town that I don't have to be employed with a particular company or work within a union in order to be a member of their bank or even for them to consider to help me apply for a loan. Now, part of the reason why I think it's taking so long is, one, possibly a lot of other people are refinancing with them. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been fucked over by a large corporate financial institution. I think part of the other reason is I'm not a member yet. Every time I talk to somebody, they're like, what about becoming a member? Do you want to become a member? Let's make you a member. And I'm like, no, I need to know whether you guys are going to accept my loan before I make that kind of commitment. So let's get that answer first. And I think that might be part of the delay in the process. But it's a double-edged sword because I'm glad to become a member if you guys will accept my fucking application. So I was supposed to. I called the loan department, and they were supposed to call me back, and they did. And I was away from my phone for a minute, and I came back, so I was on hold for a half hour. And it was just some generic customer service person called me. And I was like, aren't I supposed to talk to the loan department? And they go, oh, yeah, let me see if I can get a hold of them. And then they come back after 10 minutes and they're like, yeah, no one's available in the loan department, so I can't really forward your call. But I can mark your message as urgent and forward that over to them, and they'll call you within a day or two. And again, today I got no calls. I got a response from somebody within Citizens One that's trying to fucking help me sort this out and at least get the repo off of my credit history. And that process is currently at a standstill because the point of contact has not gotten back to him, because the point of contact is the person that made this agreement with me. And I still haven't received my detailed financial statements that she was supposed to send me. Go figure, right? They don't fucking send me any of that shit. I haven't, the only thing I've received is that letter I showed you guys, or not. I don't think I showed you guys yet, but it's basically a letter that says, hey, this is an attempt to collect your debt. You have overdue payments. And it was mailed out the day after they repoed my car and reached me a week and a half later. So, it's they didn't try at all. they're just trying to cover their asses and be like, see, we mailed something. Something was there. And it's like, yeah, but after the fact. So after the fact that you illegally repossessed my car with no warning, you didn't give me an opportunity to pay back the back claims based on the fact that I had lost most of my income due to COVID. So yeah, all of that has, it's just this perpetual thing that lingers in the back of my mind. And I'm waiting for the phone call to come through. I'm waiting for messages to come through. So like every time my phone buzzes, I'm like, is this a good news? Is this thing? Is this something? Is it going to be, and I tripped out yesterday. I got through what I needed to get through. But by the time it came closer to the stream, I was like, I just felt so lousy. And like, I wasn't really like concentrating very well. And I knew that if I did a stream, it would be very half-assed. And distracted and not focused on what I would like to talk about. So I decided to push it to today. I had all the research and stuff done, so I was able to get ahead on my work and actually concentrate a little bit more today. But I just needed to decompress yesterday. And yeah, as Aiden says, whole ass or no ass, and that's pretty much how I look at these streams. I'm not gonna half-ass this shit. I don't want to give you guys a poor program. So, especially when we're gonna be talking about some pretty big and important topics. I want to give these topics, the credit they're due. So, let's dive into it. So this is an article from SheerPost. And I found it really, really interesting. I have a lot of friends who are either currently serving in some form of armed services, or have served in some form of armed services. So I thought this article, which says the military wasn't a way out of poverty for me, written by a gentleman by the name of T.J. Thompson, was really, really interesting. And it points out something that I don't think we talk about a whole lot. And part of the thing, I've talked to a lot of veterans that have come to my show, and as vehemently anti-war as I am, I'm not anti-veteran. That is a misnomer. That is constantly levied against anti-war people. That if you are anti-war, then you are also immediately anti-veteran. In fact, if you're anti-war, you're probably the most pro-veteran because you don't want to see any more fucking veterans. We just don't. I don't want to make more vets. I don't want to make more veterans. And maybe if we stop doing that, maybe if we stop doing this shit, we can start focusing on the veterans that already exist and trying to get them services that they need to improve their lives, considering they were working class people that went and fought rich people's wars. That's basically what it is. That's the truth of the United States military. It's a bunch of rich people sending poor people out to die for a bunch of resources they want to steal from other countries. There's no other real way to put it. I'm sorry I can't sugarcoat that for your fervent nationalism, but that's just the way that it is. So I figured let's read this article and kind of to talk about some of the stuff that he addresses here. So let's start with this. So it starts with, I grew up on the edge of the Great Dismal Swamp in Southern Virginia. We lived in a sewage ravaged, bug infested trailer park. I didn't realize we were poor at first. I just thought this is how things were. Which, by the way, is I think how a lot of kids in poverty look at it. They don't know that there is something different out there. I know for me growing up, like the fact that I didn't grow up super poor, but I grew up like low to middle class. We didn't have like the state of the art technology or any of that sort of stuff. Like we had a VHS player when the DVD player was coming out. Like all my friends had a DVD player, and then my dad bought like a VHS DVD combo, and shortly after that Blu-ray started coming out, and he wanted nothing to do with that. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't grow up in the lap of luxury, but when I was growing up, I just figured, hey, this is just how fucking things are, just like he points out here. But it was a difficult place to grow up, And as I got older, I wanted to escape it. So I took what I thought was my only chance to get out of poverty. I joined the military. So this is again, and then he goes on to say, now I know why they say poverty is a backdoor draft. This is something I've heard a lot. One of the times I was in Norfolk, Virginia, which is has a naval yard and a lot of military veterans. I talked to one of them, and he was a bartender at the bar. I think he might have also been the co-owner of the place. I can't remember, but he was the bartender there, and he basically said, "This was my way out. This was my way out of my small town." I have friends that say this same thing. The only way for me to get out of my small podunk town with, very conservative beliefs, very traditional outlook, not a lot of opportunity. Okay, I just got a warning something about Odyssey, which I will try to fix. Sorry about that, folks. If you're watching on Odyssey and yeah, I can't figure out how to fix the problem. If you're watching on Odyssey and there's an issue with the stream, I apologize. It just told me that there's some kind of issue with the stream for Odyssey. But to go back to the point, we'll sort that out later. But to go back to the stream, to go back to the point that I was trying to make, is when you're stuck in a very low income area like this person was, as TJ was, and you want to get out and you want to move to a different place, and you can't because poverty, the military is your only way out. You can't afford college because they're not going to give student loans to people that are in poverty because, oh no, they might not be able to pay it back later. Who knows? We can't take that risk. The financial institutions can't take that risk unless they're betting against you. Then they can take all the risk they want. Anyway, so let's keep going. So after deploying to the Persian Gulf in 2003 and experiencing unspeakable horrors, my military duty finally ended, and I took the best job available to me, working in the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, Virginia, which I just mentioned. Just talked about how I know a bunch of people who are vets in Norfolk. The work was hazardous. I spent hours each day climbing around the tanks and voids on a submarine that had to be certified safe to enter. There was always welding, grinding, sandblasting, and paint chipping going on. When I started coughing up black sludge, I knew I had to escape again. Poverty, I learned, is one long escape attempt after another. And boy, howdy, is that fucking true. When you are in poverty, all you're trying to do is escape out of it, and you finally do, and then something else comes up because you're desperate. So you kind of take whatever comes your way, and you got to take whatever financial opportunities that roll around in your way. So for this person, he had to take an incredibly dangerous job that probably didn't offer a lot of health benefits. And once his health was compromised, it was okay, time to move to a different thing because this thing will literally kill me physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. Right? Like if he went to the doctor and they said, well, you have so-and-so disease and you have to be in the hospital for this much time. And he comes out and he gets, $300,000, $400,000 in debt. Well, there goes your financial security and you're just stuck back in unending poverty again. So yeah, so it is one escape after another. I've done it. I've taken on 3-4 jobs at a time, trying to just keep my head above water. And when that was, too emotionally and physically taxing, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and it was affecting my relationships with my family and people that I was dating and my friends and all this other stuff, it was like, okay, I gotta quit. And I got to find something different. I got to escape this cycle of poverty and go to a different cycle of poverty. And that's how capitalism operates. So let's keep going. By then, I was married with children. I got myself into culinary school on a path to a better life. Then the Great Recession hit. As the economy collapsed around us, we often had to choose between paying bills and buying groceries. Boy, do I know that too. There were many years where that was a choice that I had to make. Many years eating just basic pasta and peanut butter sandwiches, basic vegetables that I could find, nothing too crazy. And I would luck out every once in a while and find like a really good spice or something that I can start adding to my food, but really, really basic stuff. That's all I could afford. And my mom would help me out here and there as well. She would send me some food when I was stuck in this position. So yeah, I've been there. It's like, okay, do I want to buy food or do I want to pay rent this month? I don't know. Let's see what happens. I guess rent is probably more important, so I have been there. These years of trauma wreaked havoc on my mental health, as poverty and capitalism usually do. I got some cookie cutter drug-based mental health treatment from the Veterans Associations, but that made things worse. At times, the VA treatment had me in lockdown 24/7. I was treated as a number, not as an individual. Pharmaceuticals, that is not something that has worked for me. Therapy works for me. Time alone works for me. I take different kinds of supplements. That works for me. Taking a walk, doing exercises, writing, being creative, finding some sort of escapism through comic books or video games has been far better than pharmaceuticals for my mental health. That's not to say that pharmaceuticals don't work for you. They might, but everybody is different. But in this case, this individual had negative effects to pharmaceuticals. And the job of the VA, if they treated him like he was a person, would see that and say, we got to take him off of the pharmaceuticals and maybe try some alternative therapies, maybe try some different supplements. But the VA is so underfunded and so overcrowded that they might not have the resources to do that. So let's keep going. I'm sharing this because stories like mine are all too common, but we don't hear them very often, especially around the holidays like 4th of July, which is true. More than 30,000 veterans have taken their own lives since 9/11, and over 8 million Americans fell into poverty last year. Yet our country continues to spend hundreds and billions of dollars each year on war and the Pentagon instead of building real paths out of poverty for people who grew up like I did. And again, that's very true because, we're about to spend $100 billion on a better nuclear device that we don't need. Completely useless, completely unnecessary. Lee Camp just did a whole story about that. He did a whole segment on Redacted Tonight about that. Instead, what do we need? We need healthcare. We need people to get help, with debt relief, with rent relief. We need a universal basic income in this country. We need better, an increase in the minimum wage in this country. We need so many more things than spending $100 billion, which all that money could very easily take care of all of the things I just mentioned. And instead, we spend it on the military. We spend it on the Pentagon budget. We spend it on a new nuclear device we don't need. So, it becomes pull yourself up by your bootstraps or join the military and maybe we'll help you out. So he goes on to say, corporations and the military industrial complex profit from our poverty. They get cheap labor and fatter profit margins. The rest of us deal with the interlocking effects of poverty, like poor health, trauma, poisonous living conditions, and all kinds of structural barriers to opportunities. This is a political choice, and we can choose differently. And we can. If we reallocate the budget that we have given to the Pentagon and the $100 billion we give to war profiteers and merchants of death, and we utilize it to actually help people. That is something that we can absolutely do. And it is a lack of political will. It is the need to create enemies that don't particularly exist, that we've been doing since forever, right? This McCarthyist Let's make an enemy out of somebody different so we can justify the only thing that America is good at, which is creating weapons of destruction, creating weapons of death, instead of actually helping people. He talked about the backdoor draft. This is how the backdoor draft operates. Continue to oppress the people in your own country, so their only way out of poverty is joining the military. And by the way, if they don't continue to stay in the military and become career military, then fuck them, because that's how it works. The VA does not get the funding that it deserves. But if you stay in the military, and I addressed this in my video of my whole show about socialism, that's available on my channel. It's in the backlogs. I recommend you guys go check that out. The biggest socialist secret in America is the military. If you stay in the military, if you become a career military person, you get healthcare, you get access to higher education for free, you get a really good retirement fund, you get great pension, your housing is taken care of. All of that for serving capitalism. So there's a pocket of socialism that works really, really well. But they don't really want to talk about it in that context. Because if they talk about it in that context and you look at it and you go, yeah, wait a minute, these people, you can afford it for these people. What if we reallocate the budget and do this for everybody? They would go, oh, well, then that's communism. And if you want communism, then you're going to have to give up all your freedoms because everything you do belongs to the government, which is a false way, which is just false, just completely false. That's a whole bunch of propaganda nonsense. I know veterans that have waited for a decade or longer to get services within the VA. If you serve a rich person's war, shouldn't that rich person be thankful to you for doing their bidding, for putting your life on the line? But they don't, because when you come back home, how many homeless veterans are there in this country? The answer is too fucking many. Continuing on. For me, things turned a corner when I found Veterans for Peace, a nonprofit organization of veterans like me who understand that prioritizing federal spending on war and weapons over social program keeps people down. There we go. Veterans for Peace helped me connect to holistic treatment and support that heals rather than harms. It also connected me to the bigger movement against poverty, like Fight for 15, in which low-wage workers fight for our own economic empowerment by demanding fair wage. Finally, I found the Poor People's Campaign, which follows the steps of Martin Luther King Jr.'s efforts to end poverty in this country. Veterans for Peace became a sponsoring member of the Poor People's Campaign, making the connection between militarism and poverty. So again, something else that they won't talk to you about is the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was actually pretty fucking socialist and would actually want people, like his view on equality and civil rights actually comes from an anti-war socialist stance. Because if you're anti-war, then you are anti-racist. That's how wars operate. They dehumanize the people by claiming that they're enemies. And who does America claim are enemies? And in a lot of instances, it's black and brown people in black and brown countries. And boy, fuck all if they're socialists or communists. If they're black socialists and black communists, then holy fucking hell, they'll do what they did to Fred Hampton, which is assassinate you. But there's that connection between militarism and poverty. It's a way out of poverty, but only if you stick with it. So if you're a conscientious objector, if your conscience won't allow you to fight these wars and you want to get out, then you're going to be stuck right back into that cycle of poverty again. And all the trauma and all the mental health and all of the detriment that you faced as a member of the military, they don't give a shit about. We believe that to truly fight poverty, we must slash the Pentagon budget. We can cut our annual military spending by at least $350 billion and still keep ourselves safe while building a more equitable society. And that's true. In order to keep the military running the way that it runs, you need roughly $300 billion. Roughly. For me, the military wasn't a way out of poverty. Instead, militarism is why so many of us are poor in the first place. But if low-wage workers, veterans, and our workers together, we can make the investments we need to choose human decency over war, trauma, and poverty. So there you go. It's a veteran coming out and saying that. And if you know veterans, you know that most of them are anti-war. Most veterans are anti-war. I think I've met 2 or 3 that said, I had one guy in, gosh, where the hell was I? Somewhere in Iowa. I'm trying to remember the name of the town. Maybe I don't think it was Iowa City. It was somewhere in Iowa. And, I met this vet and we stood outside and talked for a few minutes. And I asked him, do you still support war? And he goes, which one? And I said, just war in general. Like, do you support, And he said, if it's against the right enemy. And I said, well, who's the right enemy? And he goes, well, there are terrorists out there that want to, take our freedom. And I go, do you really believe that even after you served? Like after you saw, what wars are like, you still believe that? And he goes, yeah, if it's the right cause. And I was like, do you believe that this is the right cause? And he goes, hey, I got to fight terrorism somehow. Which, yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? But to him, that was completely rational and justified. I've had other people that said, yeah, we need war. That's the way that this country works. That's the way we keep our borders safe. If we have a smaller military, then we'll get invaded all the time, which I think is a very paranoid way to look at stuff. These are veterans that I've talked to, but most other veterans that I've talked to, not pro-war, very, very anti-war, very, very anti-war. So yeah. So let's look at your comments. Fred, good to see you. Good. Thank you for tuning in. Gene, nice to see you as well. Gene says, I'm there now, sitting here in this right-wing belly of the beast because it was this or homeless, and now it seems I can't escape. Yeah. That's kind of the way that it is. I mean, I felt like I was going to be stuck in that position as well. Probably why I stayed in a pretty abusive relationship for as long as I did was because I felt like, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to afford my own place? Like, we're working together and we're still kind of barely getting by, and I didn't realize, like, yeah, that's a trap in the cycle of poverty. And I'm really sorry that you're stuck there, Gene. I hope that you get out of that situation soon. Gene also says these people seem to hate Biden, but they sure seem to love his shitty EO. The next phase of cognitive dissonance that's unbelievably worse than the previous one. Yeah, people don't think that Democrats wage war, but they forget about Lyndon B. Johnson in Vietnam. They forget about what Clinton did to Eastern Europe. They forget that FDR was a Democrat and got us into World War II. Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat that got us into World War I. And they go, oh, different time, blah, blah. And I mean, they make these excuses, the cognitive dissonance is pretty, yes, like you said, it's pretty intense. It's pretty up there. Dragonetta, good to see you. It looks like Odyssey is doing okay. I am like 3 or 4 minutes behind, or what it's showing up on my screen is 3 or 4 minutes behind. Hopefully whatever the issue was has resolved itself. So yeah, awesome. Cool. Okay. So I want to get into this. This is probably going to get me quite a bit of hate because we're going to talk about the Hindutva. The Hindutva is a very far right faction of Hinduism in India right now, and there's a lot of Hindutva groups within the United States as well. A lot of Hindutva supporters in the United States as well. Basically, there's a whole lot of backlash that comes to anybody that criticizes the BJP, the RSS, what's going on in India now, the treatment of Muslims in India, the treatment of Muslims in Kashmir, the Indian occupation of Kashmir. The Hindutva kind of come out, and there's a lot of backlash against people that speak out. So, by the way, if you are one of those people that wants to sit there and troll the post, please don't. I will block you if you're going to be a shitty troll. If you want to have a rational conversation about this and defend your side of the argument, if you are somebody that believes in the Hindutva, great. But if you're just going to be a shitty troll, you're going to get blocked. Because I have no tolerance for that. I have enough shit that I'm dealing with that I don't fucking need Hindutva trolls. So let's look at this. So there is I'll talk about this a little bit more shortly, but I want to read this definition from the Hindutva Harassment Field Manual, which is put together by the South Asian Scholar Activist Collective. And by the way, this story was sent to me by my friend Aiden. So shout out to him. Thank you for sending this over. Very, very informative article that led me to a lot of really great stuff. So Hindutva, literally Hinduness, is a modern political ideology that advocates for Hindu supremacy and seeks to transform India, a secular state, into an ethno-religious nation known as the Hindu Rashtra, Hindu nation. Hindutva is the official platform of the BJP, an extreme right political party in India. Parts of the Indian diaspora, including the United States, as also champion Hindutva. Some scholars define Hindutva as a type of Hindu nationalism, whereas others use Hindutva and Hindu nationalism as synonyms. Hindutva ideology is promoted by an array of vigilante political and cultural groups known as the Sangh Parivar. The RSS, a paramilitary organization based in India, is at the center of the Sangh and sets the priorities and tactics for promoting Hindutva ideology. The RSS's overseas branch, the HSS, actively operates to promote Hindu nationalist ideas and goals among the Hindu diaspora, including in the United States. Hindutva ideology dates back roughly 100 years. Its early ideologues were informed by ethno-nationalist movements in the early 20th century Europe, including Italy and Germany. Leading scholars on Hindutva consider the ideology to have remained stable over the last century, especially in its core objective, a Hindu Rashtra where some Indians will be more equal than others. So there we go. There's the start to this. Lots of problems within that definition, right? Or what this collective is defining Hindutva to be, and what I've seen Hindutva to be, which is Hindu nationalism. And again, any form of nationalism will lead into inequality. What they are describing is not a democratic process at all. And I would go as far as to say that any culture, any society, in any country that has classism at its core, which America does, which India does, the UK does, all of these cannot be a democracy. If there are different classes of people and one class is valued higher than the other, you cannot claim that that is a democracy. You cannot. When one person is more equal than another, that is not equality. That is by definition not equality. So, again, a Hindu Rashtra where some Indians will be more equal than others is not a democracy. India cannot claim that it is going to move forward with a Hindutva ideology and claim that it's a democracy. It's the same thing here. Republicans sit here and preach that America needs to be a Christian nation with Christian ideals. No, it's a secular nation. It's always been that way. That's how the fucking country got started. And if you're going to claim that it's a Christian nation, meaning giving more preference to Christians than any other sex in your country, you cannot claim that you're a democracy. Now, there's various other reasons why America is not a democracy, primarily the fact that we are a country that is run by capitalism, owned by rich people, and they are the ones that make our rules and laws and control politicians. We're an oligarchy. That's the truth behind it. But India can't claim that either by wanting to be a Hindutva nation. They just can't. So what is the problem with this, right? The other thing I wanted to mention too is this is also similar to how Zionists in Israel look at Israel. Certain people are going to be valued more than other people, and they want the complete extermination of Palestinians so that there is no fucking Arab influence within their country. That's how Zionists look. And Zionists didn't give a shit too, by the way. I released a video just this week on Monday talking about BDS and talking about how Zionists in the early 1900s, around the same time that the Hindutva was being formed, were looking at Africa, specifically Kenya and Uganda, as areas where they could set up the Jewish homeland. To them, it didn't fucking matter where it was. It didn't matter where it was. It just so happened to be that they went to Palestine, and there's a lot more involved in terms of land grabs and displacement because of the British, but they were in talks with the British of just taking over parts of Kenya and Uganda and making that Israel, basically. It didn't fucking matter. And they would have done the same thing in Kenya and Uganda as they're doing in Palestine. So again, you can look at the parallels of how Hindutva and Zionism work very closely, very similarly. Their philosophies are very much in line, creating these ethno-national theocracies. That's what they are. They're ethno-national theocracy. They want to sit there and claim that Israel is the only fucking democracy in the Middle East. That's a lie. It's a bold-faced fucking lie. They are an ethno-national fucking theocracy. And that's what India wants to become too. That's what India is on the track of becoming. And if you criticize this, instead of trying to have a rational debate, they'll fucking attack you. They'll attack you for it. That's what they do. They harass you for it. So that's why the South Asian Scholar Activist Collective created this Hindutva harassment field manual so that people can learn about what this philosophy is, learn how they attack, and how to counter it. There's a lot of great information on the site. I want to look through. I want to look through about three of them. Some of them are shorter than others, but it kind of helps you understand a little bit more about what this philosophy is doing to people that criticize it. And again, capitalism operates the same way. Anytime you criticize capitalists, the fucking trolls come out, right? And I find it hilarious that these people are the first ones that come out and make fun of snowflakes for, not liking racist jokes or misogynist jokes or the low-hanging fruit bullshit jokes that reinforce negative stereotypes that don't exist in our society anymore. And they go, oh, fucking, you're such a snowflake. Oh, you're trying to censor speech. What next? What next? What can we say next? What words are you going to say? And then the second you criticize capitalism, they go, fucking, you can't say shit like that. And you can't do shit. And Hindutva operates the same way. You can't say shit like that. All of a sudden they get real sensitive. All of a sudden these champions of free speech are trying to fucking lock up speech. Okay, so I want to look at a couple of these sections here. So this is Intersectionality in Hindutva. Critics of Hindutva are often attacked on the basis of their presumed caste and religious affiliation. Dalit voices, lower class. Dalit voices, as well as individuals from non-Hindu faiths and atheists, are automatically maligned wrongly as bigoted by pro-Hindutva individuals. Hindutva advocates attempt to silence critical Hindu voices who are upper caste by claiming the individual is self-hating or misinformed. Again, the Israel lobby does this. I mean, the Israel lobby got the Justice Department to redefine anti-Semitism. It's no longer a hatred of Jewish people. It's people that criticize, demonize, or delegitimize Israel, which would mean, by that definition, Hitler wasn't really an anti-Semite because Israel wasn't a thing when Hitler was around. And if that's the definition we're going by, then I guess you can't call Hitler an anti-Semite. The Justice Department doesn't consider Hitler to be an anti-Semite. Israel doesn't consider Hitler to be an anti-Semite. This is the same way. If you're critical of the Hindutva, it doesn't mean that you are critical of Hinduism as a whole. Because this is a faction of it. This is a very extreme faction of Hinduism. And then they claim that, oh, you're self-hating, right? Which is, again, something that I've seen the Zionists do as well, of like the Jews for Palestine groups. They're just self-hating. They're misinformed. They don't understand the problem. They're coming from a point of privilege. Really, for advocating for people that don't have a formalized military, are living in rubble, and have and as Israel put it, have put these people on a diet in an open air prison with limited internet and limited electricity. Those people, defending those people, is coming from a point of privilege. So we continue. However, to better appreciate how one experiences being a target of Hindutva harassment, we must recognize that one's religious and caste background is not attacked in isolation. Targets of Hindutva harassment come from different class positions, may be gender non-conforming, and LGBTQ plus identifying. Also, not all critics of Hindutva are South Asians. Individuals of different races, ethnicities, nationalities are critical of Hindutva. The harassment and hate they face for voicing opposition impacts them in multiple and intersectional ways. For example, frequently when individuals are targeted, the attack is also gendered and sexualized, and individuals' appearance may be belittled, and they may receive threats ranging from sexual harassment to assault, designated to intimidate and silence their criticism. Again, very similar. This is somewhat similar to how the Israel lobby operates. The Israel lobby gets a little bit more, and the Hindutva does this too. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it's attacking college-aged women, right? That they claim are defenseless, right? That kind of using like the damsel in distress kind of thing, and then they attack them. And they make fun of their appearance. That's how you know that you've won the argument, by the way, is when they don't have anything to debate you on an intellectual level or to counter you on an intellectual level, and they make fun of the way you look. Or they make fun of, or they say some kind of racist thing, right? That's how I know I've won the debate. I always start with, I like to open a debate by a you look like joke. Just open that up. We'll start low. That's like low-hanging fruit. And then we'll work our way to the intellectual debate. That's what I like to do. I don't go down the racist or sexist route. But you look like John Goodman from The Big Lebowski. Now we can move forward with the debate, now that we've addressed that. We've done the low-hanging fruit thing. But that's how you know you've won, though, is when they don't have like anything to debate you on an intellectual level with facts or any sort of philosophical argument or anything like that. And they just go like, well, you look like a clown. Okay. I think I won. So this is just, mushing my words. This is about Hindutva outside India, right? South Asia is not a monolith. Not all South Asians are from India, and not all are Hindu. I, for one, grew up Hindu. I'm an agnostic now. South Asians are from other nations in the region or live outside the region in the diaspora. I would be considered the diaspora. Living outside South Asia may be used to discredit critics, either by arguing the individual lacks on the ground knowledge or has been corrupted by Western perspectives of South Asian history, religion, and culture. Also, individuals of South Asian descent born outside the region may be dismissed as lost children of the diaspora who possess no authentic information about Hinduism, South Asian history, and or politics. So here's the dip with that. It can't work with me because I was born there. I lived there for 8 years. I'm well aware of how things operate there. I still have family there that I keep in touch with. My family, a lot of my family is still traditional Hindu, so I know how the religion and the philosophy operates. I have practiced Hinduism for the better part for about half my life. Right, I'm 32. I'm 32 now. I was a practicing Hindu till I was about 15 years old. So that's a little under half my life. I was a practicing Hindu. I know what those philosophies stand for. I know what those prayer rituals do. I know what they are for. So when they attack me, they can claim that I'm the lost diaspora, but no, not really. I lived and experienced this shit. I saw how my sister was treated by the traditionalist conservative members of my family, and I did not fucking care for it. And neither did my sister. And trust me, my sister is somebody that doesn't need my fucking defense as the male in the family to come to her aid. She will fucking hold her own. And she has. But again, that goes against what the Hindutva want. They'll levy the attacks of, well, you don't know any better. You don't live there. You're not in the know. You can't, it's like, no, but we are in the know because we're still steeped in that culture that still surrounds our family. To continue. The diversity within the South Asian diaspora globally further complicates how the Hindutva hate manifests. Many members of the Indian diaspora were or are hyper-selected to immigrate to North America, Europe, and other places for their skill, which results in the majority of these diasporic communities being the Savarna, the upper class. South Asian diasporic spaces and politics are frequently defined by the upper class individuals, including the prejudices held by some members of this group. Dalit and non-Hindu South Asian diasporic individuals are often unwelcome in these spaces, continuing the discrimination and hate they experience in South Asia through Hindutva, casteism, and other forms of biases in their new homes, both social and professional spaces. Such discrimination and hate is hard to expose to the larger public of their new homes who are unfamiliar with the history and diversity of the region. Hindutva outside India takes advantage of this ignorance to inappropriately adopt the language of diversity and inclusion to promote their narrow views, to attack their critics. These tactics can result in retaliation that include the critic losing their employment and potentially being deported if a critic's immigration status is linked to their employment. So again, this is something that the Israel lobby does as well. They go after college kids, and make sure that they can't get a job based on their views. Oh, you have these extremist views. They seem to be a little ridiculous. Uh-oh, you're getting a little too political. Can't have that. We're going to pass on your application. So it's very insidious the way that they do that. The discrimination that they're talking about, it's interesting because when Indian people find me, because I bill myself as an Indian comedian, I'm not lying about that. When they find me and they come to the show, they get pretty upset and annoyed because I am not. They prefer, because they look at me as a stand-up comic, they look at me as someone of a lower caste. And usually, this is what I've experienced, is usually when the rich Indian people find my show, they don't like it. And they feel like I'm being unfairly critical of India and unfairly critical of America, because I'm criticizing the way that they made their wealth. Now, here's the other thing too, right? When I criticize the Hindutva, I have looked into the BJP and the RSS, and I've looked into Modi. And for a little while, I was trying to defend him and say, well, his policies are stating this, that, and the third. It seems like they're not executed properly. Where I think they were executed, we're now, after kind of looking into the history of this a little bit more, learning a little bit more about his past and the way his policies have evolved. Modi is the current leader of the extreme right-wing party in India. And usually when you go extreme right wing, you lean right into fascism. You lean right into authoritarianism. And now being connected with a Hindu nationalist party, it becomes more and more evident of that, right? I did give him a fair shake and give him the benefit of the doubt to say, okay, let's see what he can do. He's talking about implementing, he implemented privatized healthcare. It didn't work out. He pulled back from it and tried to implement some kind of socialized healthcare, which you don't see right-wing leaders doing. He wanted to get everybody digital literacy. He wanted to prevent corruption. What did he do? He took a primarily cash-based society, and he took out two of the big bills out of circulation, didn't give enough people enough time to try to go get bank accounts. People that lived in the villages, people that lived far away, migrant workers couldn't access their money. And a lot of people just lost more income, thus pushing people into poverty. Now, that was badly executed, but he never rectified his actions. So, and now, if you look at the way that Muslims are treated in India, if you look at the way that agnostics and atheists and skeptics are treated in India, if you look at the way India is treating Kashmir, it becomes very, very evident that this is leaning right into, like, they are leaning hard into a right-wing theocracy. I want to move to a different section. I would highly encourage you guys to go look at that website. Hindutva Harassment Fieldmanual.org is what it's called. I want to look at this section here. So this is Hindutva attacks on academics. While some academics may choose to respond by making their social media accounts private, others who choose to use platforms to share their research and views are vulnerable to a typical form of swarming online behavior and the subsequent harassment that may follow offline. When an online coordinated swarm goes after an academic, it can create the appearance of widespread discontent against the academic, even if no such discontent actually exists among the students or colleagues of the academics in question. I believe this happened to Brett Weinstein. This sounds like a very similar situation to Brett Weinstein. I would love to go into way more details of that, but that was Washington, the state of Washington, I believe. Brett Weinstein is a lefty intellectual. Bear in mind that many of these accounts are likely fake and not associated with a real person. So this happens a lot. When I posted my videos about Kashmir, I got attacked by Twitter trolls. And I muted most of them, but their accounts were created like May 2021 or October 2020, and the only thing that they are retweeting and the only thing that they're saying is things from the BJP, things from the RSS. They're adding fucking people like Amit Shah. Same thing happened with my Palestine videos. There were certain accounts that would come out. They were just made 2 months ago. They have very few followers. They follow very few people, but they're bots. They're not real accounts, or they're paid accounts to look up people with particular hashtags or particular keywords and to go lambaste them. They're paid to do that. That's That actually does exist. So these guys aren't, they're not saying anything, ridiculous here. And here we go. They're created solely to amplify Hindutva messaging and create the impression of mass outrage. Such bots can and should be reported to the platform in question, but increasingly sophisticated methods, including the use of cyborgs, can make it difficult to identify and remove bots from platforms. To learn more about bots, blah, blah, blah. The Atlantic Council Digital Forensics Research Lab. The Atlantic Council is part of NATO, and they kind of control what happens on Facebook. So I wouldn't be surprised if this gets shadow banned on Facebook. Moreover, the weaponized use of trending hashtags, particularly those that name the target, should be treated with due caution instead of being uncritically accepted as the index of a, quote, real discontent caused by the academic in question. It is sometimes possible to stop the swarm by blocking the prominent Hindutva accounts that either respond to or share one's content. Nonetheless, these coordinated attacks may well continue beyond the control of an individual user. Moreover, Hindutva harassers take advantage of publicly available information, including information on university websites, about the academics courses, office locations, and office phone numbers to continue these attacks offline. This can create security concerns for both faculty and students, as well as their families on and off campus. So that's like doxing, what they're talking about. That you can get doxed by these people. So this is the last section to read here, addressing manufactured complaints. If I can get it to stay right. Coordinated attacks can range from simply posting a disagreeable tweet on a big group, asking people to criticize the academic, to actively send mass emails to the university accusing them of Hindu phobia. Again, if you criticize Hindutva, if you criticize the BJP, if you criticize what India is doing, you're claimed a Hinduphobic, right? You created a Hinduphobe, and that's just not true. This is not actual Hinduism. This is creating a Hindu nationalist ethno state is not what Hinduism stands for. Nowhere in the tenets of Hinduism does it say that we need a Hindu-centric state. Nowhere in Judaism does it say that they need a Jewish central ethno state. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that about Christians. Any religious belief that says that is not representative of the actual religious belief. Given the scope and scale of the activities of the BJP IT cell and those modeled on it in the diaspora, it is easy to create the impression that an academic at your university is Hindu-phobic. So basically, go on to say that it's in Basque term increasingly propagated by the online BJP IT cell and its sympathizers to curtail dissent or critique, whether in India or abroad. In particular, accusations of Hinduphobia are used to silence criticism of casteism or Brahminical patriarchy. Online glossaries produced in efforts to promote the term Hinduphobia by Hindutva organizations, for example, cite Brahmanism, an accepted term within social scientific academic research, and anti-caste Dalit intellectual traditions as a colonial term that reveals the Hinduphobia of the speaker. That gets a little complicated, right? Basically, they're claiming that if you criticize, especially if you criticize like casteism and Brahminical patriarchy, which is basically if you're a Brahmin, then the woman doesn't have a whole lot of say in what happens. That traditional Hindu viewpoint that I don't particularly like or agree with or anything like that. You're being Hindu-phobic in colonial terms, right? They're basically saying, well, you're using the language of the colonizers that kept the Brahmins down, that didn't let the Brahmins reach the highest level of the caste that they could have, which is simply not true. In fact, the colonizer, England, is the reason why there is a religious divide. why religion is used as a political divider. So Hindutva, in the way that Hindutva operates, is actually going along the lines of the colonizers, along the lines of what the British colonizers wanted for India. They wanted India to be a Hindu-centric ethno-state. They wanted Pakistan to be an Islamic-centered ethno-state. Divide the two religions, sow some chaos, take Kashmir. Reap the benefits of its resources. Well, we can't stay in India or Pakistan for too long because they're kicking us out. What if we fuck things up a little bit? So really, Hindutva is going along the lines of what the colonizers want. I'm going to go to the bottom here. The kinds of attacks that academics may also cause serious distress, as Hindutva activists regularly use casteist, Islamophobic, anti-Christian, misogynistic, homophobic, anti-Semitic, xenophobic, anti-black, and ableist language against their targets. Given the psychological toll of such attacks, offer the target mental health resources to cope with the stress of the situation. Consider addressing publicly the harm such language to the wider university community, disavowing such hate speech explicitly. So again, you know, the AstroTurf Israel lobby protesters that I did a whole video about that, again, released that earlier this week. They use these really horrific terms. And it does become racist and sexist, and it does become homophobic and xenophobic. It does become anti-black. These viewpoints are racist and discriminatory and sexist. That's what they're built out of that. They're built out of that. So those are the weapons that they use. So if you're going to support them, then that's really what you're fucking leaning towards. You're leaning towards this notion of Zionism is anti-black. They wanted to fucking colonize Africa. They also treat black Jews like trash in Israel. They also didn't allow a Orthodox group of Ugandan Jews to come into Israel. They're not allowed. Indians have the same thing. The hyper-conservative Hindutvas have the same thing. They don't look at women in a positive light. Very homophobic, anti-Christian, because that's a monotheistic religion, and they believe that it all has to be polytheistic or else you're wrong. Now, I mean, I've pointed out the parallels throughout this whole thing between Zionists and the Hindutva. And if this is the direction India is going to go, then India is going to become Israel in 5 years. Meaning that they are going to be an apartheid state. There's virtually no argument against that. If you look at the direction of all these things, based on the way that I've laid things out, India is on track to become the next apartheid state. Kashmir is on track to become the next Palestine. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to the next step, right? That there are Hindutva think tanks, and a Hindu lobby in India. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, we see legislation veering towards saying anything critical about India, anything critical about Hinduism or the Hindutva is Hinduphobic and is considered hate speech. But the hate speech they levy against all these other groups is totally fine. I would not be surprised if that's the direction things go. So keep your eyes out for that. Push back against that kind of shit when you see it. Gene over on the Rockfin says, speaking of cognitive dissonance, it's impossible to have democracy in any hierarchy, yet people still believe we can live in a democracy because politicians say we do. Yes, I find that incredibly hilarious. People say, oh yeah, we have a democracy, but we need that hierarchy. It's always the capitalist that always talks about democracy and equality and inclusion, but they live in a hierarchy where literally one group of people is worth less than another group of people. That's what capitalism is. And that's why under capitalism, you can't actually have a democracy. That's why under capitalism, it'll always veer towards fascism. It'll always veer towards authoritarianism, military or otherwise. And we're heading towards that in America too. This is not just a problem for India. It's a problem for everywhere, especially when capitalism is the root of all of this stuff. I'll tell you guys this real quick before we wrap things up here is, I got kicked out of a BIPOC group, which is a Black Indigenous People of Color group that was run by an Indian woman. And I'd connected with them, and they came out to see me perform live. She came with a group of 4 or 5 people. It was very nice. She came and said hello. Very nice person. But I talked about the farmer strike in India. I've talked a lot about the farmer strike in India. And somebody called me out and said that I was a communist propagandist, because what it seemed like is a group of communist extremists had co-opted this farmer strike, which, I didn't fully understand because I was too communist, and, I was spreading misinformation. I was talking about the largest general strike in human history. 250 million people in India went on strike. And what they were standing in solidarity with the farmers, which is a huge job market in India. And the farmers were going against neoliberal economic policies that were going to crush the farming industry in India. So they call me a propagandist. I corrected them in the comment section saying, hey, I'm not a propagandist. This is what's going on. I articulate that in the video. If you want more resources, I'm happy to give it to you. Day or two later, I'm banned from that group. I'm kicked out. Can't rejoin it. Can't do anything. Because I was critical of the BJP. I was critical of capitalism. I was critical of the right-wing theocratic party in India. And that somehow makes me less Indian in the eyes of these people. This group that believes in inclusivity is aligning itself with these beliefs that are discriminatory in every way. Which was just really, really disappointing to see, to be honest. I wasn't given a reason. I wasn't given a heads up or a warning or anything like that. Just kind of kicked out. It was disheartening to see that kind of stuff. But that's what happens. And they point out a really good thing is, like, when you do get attacked by trolls and they use discriminatory language, it affects your mental health, and it affects it pretty negatively. To deal with that sort of stuff all the time. If I see a troll online attacking somebody that I follow and I believe in, if I see it and there's nobody else defending this person, I will try to defend them. I will try to kind of push the trolls away. It's hard, it's taxing, it takes up a lot of your time. But people don't need to go through. The thing that happens is you feel very alone. You feel like there's nobody on your side. And that's the point of the trolls, is to isolate you. And part of the problem with these social media platforms is once the trolls start attacking, I felt like the near Tandon trolls fucking attacked me. And, I brought that up once or twice. The people that normally follow me didn't even fucking see my tweet. A handful of them did. I got a couple of likes here and there, but they barely saw the tweet. So they barely saw the responses that were coming at. But that's how they operate. Twitter, Facebook, all of that stuff, especially if they're like siding with the Atlantic Council, they side with these organizations. They side with the Israel lobby, and they'll side with the Hindutva lobby when the Hindutva lobby shows up. So when you are critical of them and they and trolls come out and attack you, they don't silence the trolls, and neither do they show your posts to the people that would follow you or are following you. So even the social media platforms are really against you. So really, it falls on us to counter that harassment by going and saying, hey, you're very wrong. Your attacks are pretty racist. That has nothing to do with the argument that's being said here. And hopefully the poster or whoever blocks them. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's really all you can do is to block these accounts. So, yeah, all right. We are going to wrap things up here. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you guys enjoyed this content, you guys know the drill. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this out with as many people as possible, because this is the type of stuff you're not going to see on corporate mainstream media. You just won't see it there. So I encourage you guys to hit the like and the share button, and please make sure you're subscribed, whether it's on Odyssey, Rockfin, Facebook, especially if you're on YouTube, and especially if you're listening to the audio version of this. Please make sure you subscribe, and leave a comment, leave a review if you're listening to this on the audio version. Those help get more people get to see them and stuff. If you are on stable financial ground and would like to make a donation, you can do so over at krishmohanhaha.com/donate. Become a sustaining member, get a bunch of free stuff, including free tickets to virtual shows and live shows when I come through your city. And if you want to find out about live shows, you can subscribe to my free email list that goes out once a week. I'll be putting up dates, ticket links, and a bunch of cool stuff on there. It goes out every Sunday. And if you miss a stream, if you miss a video, if you miss a podcast that I've released, then the email list kind of gives you a list of all of that stuff. So that's the best way to do it. And I do have live shows coming up, which I'm very excited about. I should have tickets for a bunch of these up by next week, so I'll be able to tell you guys dates and locations and where to go to get tickets. But right now, the details are on my website, krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. I've got live shows scheduled in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, Lansing, Detroit, Little Rock. I just added Louisville. I'm looking to add Minneapolis. I'm looking to add Chicago, Bloomington, Illinois, Des Moines, Iowa, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, possibly Indianapolis, St. Louis, Huntsville, Memphis, Charlotte, Greensboro, Greenville, Norfolk, tons of places I'm trying to get back to. So if you're in any of these cities, be patient. I am working on coming down to your city to perform live stand-up comedy. But speaking of that, I'm actually going to go write tonight, and I'm going to exercise and write, take care of the mind and body a little bit. Been really, really stressful, dealing with a lot of this crazy shit. So, and I really appreciate you guys' support. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, hanging out, and leaving some comments. And thank you for the tip. Gene left a tip. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Gene, Fred, Zozovics, over on the Odyssey, we have Test 2 and Jagannatha. The folks over on Facebook, Aiden, thank you very much for tuning in, leaving comments. I've got some podcasts coming out this weekend. I just released the Ifat Gazia interview. Speaking of Hindutva, she has great information about Kashmir. You guys should go check that out when you get a chance. That's out on Rockfin already, and I think the podcast just went up. And then I'll have another one tomorrow talking about the Custom and Border Protection Agency. So stay tuned for those. But we'll be back next week with some live streams. Tuesday, I'll probably do either a early live stream or a very late live stream. I will tweet that out because at 5 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be joining Graham Elwood. We're going to be talking about what's going on with my car. And I'm just going to kind of get that information out there so that people are in the know. And if this is happening to you, to know that you're not alone, and maybe, we can band together and get people treated fairly, especially during the pandemic. So Tuesday, I will be on Graham Elwood's program at 5 p.m. Eastern. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, you guys have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the road.